Hello everybody, my name is Brianna Bilo and this is your May 2024 monthly climate summary. So starting off for our story of the month, we have the May 10th to the 11th Aurora event. So hopefully some of you, if not most of you, got to go out on the night of the 10th over into the 11th and take in the truly spectacular Aurora Borealis event that we had. So this was the first time in 20 years that the Space Weather Prediction Center actually issued a watch for a G4 magnetic event, or geomagnetic event. Too many G's. What actually transpired was a G5, which is the strongest geomagnetic event that they have on their scale. The scale runs from G1 to G5, with G2, G3 being fairly common. Those are the ones that'll produce aurora that are seen, in Canada and maybe some of the upper tier of the US, so like the upper Midwest, Minnesota, maybe Maine. But this G5 event was truly I would say once in a generation, if not once in a lifetime. I did not get to see the one 20 years ago, but I've seen pictures. So this storm actually was able to be seen as far south as Key West, El Paso, Texas. There were some places that should never see aurora that got to see aurora with this event. And the East Coast actually got to see the best of the event, as the best of the storm actually happened just after their dusk, which was before sunset for us here, so we didn't get to see that part of the storm. But we did get to see some pretty impressive bursts around midnight and then again around 1 a.m. on the 11th that led to sights such as this photo here. And this photo here was actually taken on the Colorado National Monument around midnight, I believe, and this was actually taken by my housemate. He gave us permission to use the photo because it's a really dang good photo. But we could even see it here on the airport property, despite all of the lights. I was working midnights that night, and I went out and actually took a couple photos on my phone, and they're not nearly as spectacular as this, which is why I didn't share them. But you could definitely still see the aurora. We could see them on some of our webcams even. It was a very impressive event, and I was lucky to be working nights. So yeah, hopefully you got to experience this. Moving into high temperatures for the month of May, we saw a warmest high of 93 degrees in Grand Junction on the 29th and a coolest high in Aspen of 73 degrees again on the 29th. And as you can see, these highest highs were all clustered around the 28th and the 29th. We actually saw a substantial warm up at the end of the month of May, which if you go and take a look at the written summary for the month, you'll see that the month of May was actually overall below normal as far as temperatures were concerned, but we saw a very sudden jump to above normal temperatures, and that has unfortunately continued into the month of June. Looking at low temperatures, our coolest low for the month of May was 19, and that occurred in 3 spots. So that occurred in Aspen on the 8th, Craig on the 24th, and Meeker on the 2nd, 4th, and 8th. And then the warmest low was 34 degrees in Canyonlands, again on the 8th. You can see, with the exception of Craig here, all of our coldest lows actually occurred right around the 7th or the 8th. So that was a post-frontal cold snap. I believe we even had to consider freeze warnings for this one. Understandably, I mean, it got down to 29 degrees in Grand Junction. So definitely an interesting month as far as weather was concerned. Looking at precipitation, though, not as good. Despite it being cooler and unsettled, at least as far as our 10 climate sites are concerned, we did not really see that great as far as precipitation. We had 2 sites, so Aspen and Rifle, which are some of our slightly higher elevation sites, coming in with above normal precipitation, with Aspen being our big winner at 2.29 inches, which was almost 0.8 of an inch above normal. At the bottom here, we actually have Canyonlands, not vernal for once, coming in with just 0.03 of an inch of precipitation, which was almost 0.6 of an inch below normal. And we really kind of ran that gamut between, 0.8 of an inch above normal to 0.7 of an inch below normal. And definitely our higher elevation zones did better than our lower elevation zones, and most of these sites are in lower elevation zones, so this seems to be more reflective of sighting than necessarily what actually transpired. Again, if you take a look at the write-up, you can see a map that actually shows those precipitation departures across the whole area and not just at a snapshot of 10 sites, so you can kind of see how that distribution fell. Looking at our drought update, we actually saw a little bit of an improvement up here along the Utah-Colorado border. This was a solid blob of moderate D1 drought. Now it is split into two smaller sites, but we did see a slight expansion of the D1 here in southwest Colorado. Unsurprisingly, they kind of did the worst as far as precipitation over the course of the month. If you look back a slide or take a look at the written up summary, you'll see that Cortez, Durango, and Canyonlands were the bottom three, all with less than 1/10 of an inch of precipitation for the whole month. So unsurprisingly, we did see an expansion here, but we saw improvement as far as drought. So we got rid of abnormally dry conditions all along the central mountains here and even into portions of eastern Utah. So kind of a mixed bag, as I was saying. It really depended on where you were. And then as far as our drought outlook, again, I've said it before and I'll continue to say it, these abnormally dry D0 conditions for the sake of the tendency do not count. So what this is saying is that the areas kind of along and north of I-70 that are in abnormally dry conditions to no drought, we're not really going to see a change. Areas south of I-70 where we see this abnormally dry condition, we're looking at that becoming D1 or worse drought. And then looking at the areas where we have D1, seeing that persisting, potentially becoming worse. This really doesn't tell you whether the drought that's there is going to get worse or not. So, but overall, looking at expansion of drought conditions, worsening of drought conditions as we move into the month of June. And moving into snowpack, we have seen melt out completely across southeastern Utah, but northern portions of eastern Utah, so the Duchesne Basin, northeastern Uinta Basin, still doing pretty well. And as I mentioned, with some of these unsettled conditions, our mountain zones have actually continued to accumulate snow. And so that is why, despite it being the end of May, we're still well above normal as far as snowpack, because we've continued to accumulate despite also melting out. So moving into western Colorado, again, kind of seeing that reflection of what I was talking about with the drought, with the precipitation, where southwestern Colorado not doing so hot. We haven't really seen that boosting accumulation to combat the meltout. So the San Miguel, Dolores, Animas, and San Juan Basin only at 26% of what they should be in May. But the Gunnison Basin, right around normal. Colorado Headwaters and Yampa White Little Snake, both well above normal. At 140 to 150%, give or take. And again, that has to do with the fact that those basins particularly have continued to see accumulating snow combating that melt out. This will likely change as we get into June. Where is my mouse? There we go. Oop. Hang on one second. Because for the Climate Prediction Center, our monthly outlook for June is seeing a pretty good tendency towards above normal temperatures. This shading, I believe, is 40 to 50%, leaning towards above normal, maybe 50 to 60%. So definitely we are seeing an increased chances of above normal temperatures across all of eastern Utah and western Colorado. But as far as precipitation is concerned, we're looking at equal chances of above or below normal precipitation, with the exception of parts of northeast Utah where there is a slight tendency towards below normal precipitation, so 33 to 40%. So while we may still see the precipitation, the above normal temperatures are really going to take a hit on whatever precipitation we see, and also limit any accumulating snowfall in our snowpack. So we will finally see true meltout most likely this month. But that's it for the month of May. I will see you again next month with the June summary. Go back and check the April summary because it's up now. And check out the spring seasonal summary as well. Have a good one, everybody.